Alrighty, CNT125, we're working on our Network Management Lab. So on our Chapter 11 page, we're going to scroll down to the Do area. We're going to open the Network Management Online Lab folder. In there, we'll download a copy of our lab directions. Download that as a PDF or whatever works for you. And then we'll download our packet tracer file. I've already downloaded my lab here as a PDF, and I have my packet tracer file downloaded and already opened and ready to go. Now, before we dig in, let's get a quick overview of what we're going to do. We're going to do a couple different network management practices in this lab, if you will. We'll get to the map and planning here in just a minute. We'll connect our network up. After we connect it, we'll configure one switch. Once we have one switch configured, and we're going to add some Snmp config. If you remember Snmp, Simple Network Management Protocol, that reports information back to a management station. And also the management station can request information from devices like switches and routers on how things are functioning, what's working, what's not, kind of thing. So we're going to add that config in, which will be a little bit new. That'll be new for us. Once we do this, though, since we have three switches that are similar, we're going to use a technique where we copy the config from one switch, edit it, and then literally deliver it to the other switches. So it's a little bit of configuration management. We'll then configure one router, add Snmp again. Once we do that, we'll copy the config. After that config is copied, we will edit it. That's what we're doing down here. We're going to edit this, and we're going to deliver it to the other routers. So again, a little bit more configuration management. Once that's done, we'll get our workstations up and running. We'll check our network for some functionality, do some pings and SSH and that sort of thing through. Then we'll do some traces and pings and make sure things are working. Then we're going to do a little bit of network management from a single device. We're going to remote into routers and switches using SSH and actually manage them. So once we have a network up and running, we should be able to manage it through our remote connections. We're then going to do a different element of network management. We're going to use our TFTP server. We'll be able to save our configurations from routers and switches to the TFTP server. Once they're there, we can actually pull the configuration from the server back to a device. So we're then going to, from router 2, we'll do that. From router 3, we'll send the config there. We're then going to delete the router config and pull it back from the TFTP server, doing some more configuration management. So we'll be using the TFTP server to do that. We'll then look at our Snmp protocol, see that functioning in the network, look at some Snmp traffic. And after we do that, then we'll do some, down here, gathering of our configs and submit those to D2L. So there's a quick overview of what we're doing. We have a couple different aspects of network management we're going to do in this lab. Alrighty, so now that we have kind of like a quick overview of what we're doing, first thing we need to do is we are going to look at the network map on the next page. We're going to need to subnet the 192.168 network so that it works on this. So we need at least 6 subnets. What I did was I took basically a picture of this just to make my life easier, and I started marking it up. I used like a image program and just marked it up and put all my notes on. So what I decided to do, and again, you may borrow this if you want, but make sure you understand how this is happening or how this is working, because this is the kind of thing you'll need to do on the lab final on your own. So I decided to borrow 3 bits. That'll give me 8 subnets. So 3 bits, there's my 3 bits borrowed /19. It was 16, now it's /19. With 3 bits borrowed, my subnets are going up by a factor of 32. So I literally started this up here as my 32 subnet, 64, 96 subnet, and then I came across the LANs over here, 128, 160, 192. So I kind of went around the circle, and then I did these LANs out here. Once I've done that, I assigned my first usable to my router interfaces. So the 32 subnet here, this is 32.1, this is 32.2, 64, 64.1, 64.2, 96, 96.1, 96.2, 128, so 128.1, 128.2, 128.10 for workstations, if you will. Gateway of 128.1 up here, boom. 160 subnet, so 160.1, 160.2, 160.10, gateway of 160.1 right there, boom. Over here, 192 subnet, so 192.1, 192.2, 192.10, gateway of 192.1. So that is my game plan. That's what I'm going to use. And again, I made myself my own little map just for ease of reference. You can scribble it out on paper if you'd like. If I were doing this in the library myself, I would just scribble it out on pen and paper. But here I typed it up for ease of viewing for you guys. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to slide this to my second monitor so I have it for reference for the whole lab. But make sure you get your scheme worked out. Have that all written out so you know what you're doing. And again, if you want to borrow my scheme, that's okay. Just make sure you understand how I did it. Once we do that, now we're going to cable up our network. So we're going to cable up these routers and switches to match the map that we just had. Now, we are going to add some fiber modules to our routers to do this. So, up here on router 1, we're going to look at the physical tab, power it off, add some modules, and then power it back up. And then we're going to do it for router 2 and 3. So, router 1, we'll go to the physical side here. I'm going to shut the power switch off. I'm going to add a HWIC, 1 gigabit SFP module. I'm going to put 2 of these in. And then I'm going to put the little SFP module in. This is a little fiber module. It's going to go to each one of those. Then I can turn my router back on. Okay, I'm going to repeat that for router 2. If I try to put a module in now, it's going to say, hey, you can't do it with the power on, dude. So I got to turn the power off. Right there. Oops, there's my power. Gigabit module, gigabit SFP module, slide the SFPs in. Boom, boom, and then power it back on. And do the same thing for router 3. Power it off, module, module, SFP for fiber, turn it back on. So now all 3 routers have the extra fiber modules that we need. We're now going to add our fiber modules the fiber connections between the routers. So in this one, I need to reference my map so I get my cables right. This is important. It can really cause a headache for you if you get your cables in the wrong spot. We need to do gigabit 000 to 010. So fiber connection, fiber patch cable down here, we need 000 over here to 010. Okay. Then we need 000 to 010 again. 000 over here to 010. Down here, we need 000 to 010 again. 000 to 010. There's our fiber links between the routers. They're not going to come on yet because we have not configured and turned those ports on. We now need the copper cables going from the router to the switch. So gigabit 00 to gigabit 01. So gigabit 00 to gigabit 01. And I'm going to repeat that for the other ones as well. 00 here to gigabit 01. 00 to gigabit 01. And I can just double check my ports and make sure I'm right. 0001, 0001, 0001, 0001, 0001, 0001. Okay. So there, all my cables are good so far. Now I'm just going to cable my workstation in. This can be port 1. We're not doing any VLANs on this one, so this can be pretty much any port. But I'm just going to do 1 across the board to keep some standard arrangement. There we go. So now we have figured out our game plan with our map, and we've actually cabled up everything that we need. So our physical, our map and our plan is good, and our physical connections are good. What I'm going to do on my packet tracer before I get too much further is I'm going to do a save as, and I'll call this like Brown Network Management Lab or something like that. There we go. And I'll save that just so I don't lose my progress. Now I can just hit save as I go, and I'll be keeping my progress and not losing anything if we were to have a glitch here. Okay, I'm going to come back in the next podcast and we're going to do our switch configurations.